Okay, so this story is about how my first and last ever homecoming was ruined by a jock. So this guy, we'll call him James, and I began talking a few weeks before homecoming, right? And I really thought he was going to ask me to the homecoming dance, but he didn't. So James was a football player, so he was really busy after school most days, which I didn't blame him for, of course. And about the second or third day before the dance, James asked me for a date set for the day after homecoming. Of course, I said yes, but I was also really disappointed because I was going to the dance without a date. I really wanted to go, so my parents told me that I needed to tell him what I wanted to do so he wouldn't get the idea that I was always going to do what he wanted. Now, I was afraid to tell him what I wanted for the fear of sounding greedy and ungrateful. And long story short, he ended up asking me to the dance eventually. So then the night of the dance, there's a football game, and after the game ends, he goes home to shower. 45 minutes after the dance starts, he shows up and sits there on his phone the entire time. Mind you, even though he showered, he smelled really bad. But while he was on his phone, obviously I was mad because I wanted to have fun, not just sit there for 2 hours. Anyways, I was a little sneaky and I was looking over at his phone in the meantime while I tried to figure out something to talk about. And that's when I saw this man deleting text messages and call logs between him and people that I didn't know. After a while of me just sitting there, I told him that I wanted to leave, so he goes and he tells his brother that we're leaving. When we walked outside, he didn't even offer me a ride, so I had to call my sister to come pick me up. We sat there in silence and he started speaking the very first words of the night. He was just like, I should bring up the fact that my parents don't want me to be committed to you and that they want me to see other people as well as you. Now, I was really confused, so I asked him if he was seeing other people. We weren't even together, but still. He denied it and he was like, look at my phone, there's nothing on it, go through it. That's when I realized the conversations he was deleting was between him and other girls that his parents supposedly wanted him to date. I refused to do it and I was like, so that's why you were being quiet all night. He denied it again and he was like, I really like you, I haven't felt this way in so long, I'm just afraid of getting cheated on again. And it began to all make sense. Not to mention the fact that he has always compared me to his ex in front of my face. It would make me mad, but I would just stay quiet. So he went on this long story about how much he liked me and stuff and how he totally understood if it was a deal breaker for me. I then said, I'm not putting myself in that situation and you can't expect me to. I'm either your first choice or not an option. And quite frankly, if you expect me to be okay with you seeing other people, then I don't think we need to go on a date tomorrow. He looked surprised and I pretty much dumped him. At that point, my sister was there to pick me up, so I told him I'd see him on Monday, and that was the last time we ever spoke. And the more I think about it, it was really toxic.
Storytime about why you should stay away from guys who just got out of a long-term relationship. So a little background information, I was 14 and I was in high school. And I had just moved from a normal high school to a special education unit where there was only about 60 to 90 kids. And I met this guy named Robert, and he was supposedly the most popular guy in school. He was a grade above me and he was super hot. He definitely had a reputation with the girls, and his body count was higher than his age. Well, I have a single stay-at-home mom, and her and I haven't had the best relationship, and she's kind of strict but also kind of not. Like, for example, sis will let me get my belly button and my tongue pierced, but will not let me hang out with boys. Does that make sense? Absolutely not, but here we are. Well, somehow Robert and I started talking, and then we started dating, and everything was going super good. I was seeing him every day, spending every single hour that I possibly could with him, until I came home one day with a hickey on my neck, like for part 2. Part 2 about why you should stay away from a guy who has just gotten out of a long-term relationship. So like I said, him and I started dating, and the one day I came home with a hickey on my neck. I didn't sleep with him, but him and I were fooling around. But my mom went psychotic. She grounded me. I wasn't allowed to see or speak to Robert ever again. Which was stupid because I'm a 14-year-old girl who's in love with a boy. I'm definitely going to find a way to talk to him. So now this led to me thinking that he was going to get bored and not want to be with me anymore. So finally, 2 months later, my mom was letting up and she let me go out with my friend Lauren. But we ended up just going to Lauren's house so that way Robert could come and see me. And I think I forgot to mention a few red flags. All of my friends told me that Robert had an ex-girlfriend of 4 years that he was absolutely in love with. But that wasn't the worst one. He told me that he was never going to get over his ex and that he was always going to want to be with her. And then he asked me to be his girlfriend 2 days later. And we're going to call her Lucy. Well, I posted a few TikToks and Lucy's best friend Ellie commented on my TikToks, like for part 3. Part 3 about why you should stay away from guys who had just gotten out of a long-term relationship. Like I said, I posted some TikToks of Robert and I, and Lucy's best friend Ellie decided to comment. Ellie commented something along the lines of, look at Robert finally getting some attention. And Lucy, which is his ex-girlfriend, commented, he can finally leave me alone now. So I screenshotted it and I showed it to Robert and he was like, oh, just forget about it. It was nothing. Block them. But instead of that, I decided to be petty and I posted another TikTok saying, look at Robert finally getting some attention. 5 minutes later, Ellie Snapchatted me and she was like, I don't know why you're doing that. Like, I just commented that because he was literally just texting Lucy on Christmas. saying that he misses her and he would do anything to get back together with her. So I screenshot it and I show it to Robert, and he doesn't say anything. He literally just straight up ignores me. So obviously we broke up. He got a new girlfriend and she would literally call me every name under the sun. So I gave her a little reminder that he's never going to get over Lucy. And I started dating Robert's best friend, and he is so loyal and I love him so much.
So many red flags in the relationship. I'll just name a few. First, his phone was always facing down. So when we were out in public, eating at restaurants, or just out at home, his phone was always facing downward, so I couldn't see the screen. And I knew none of his passwords. I mean, if you have nothing to hide, then why be so secretive? So that's how he was like the entire 2 years that we were together. Always hiding his phone. Next, we lived together, and some days he didn't even come home. He said that he was busy working and that he was too tired to drive. And I actually believed him. I know that sounds crazy, but there's actually more. I worked night shift from 7 p.m. till 7:30 a.m. There's this one time that he went on this trip without even telling me. It was morning time and I was leaving work, and he calls me and tells me he's in Florida. I confronted him about it and he tells me, I told you about this 2 weeks ago. He told me that he was thinking about going, but didn't actually tell me he was going. I know I'm working, but he could have at least texted me saying, I'm at the airport, I am on my plane, I landed in Florida, but no. I just got a random call that he was in Florida. And the crazy thing is that I forgave him. At this point, the trust was pretty much gone. One day, I was scrolling along on his Instagram with my dog's account. And guess what I find? I find a random girl posing right next to his car on her profile picture. His car is so unique, and we have no cars like this here on this state. As soon as I seen that car, I knew it was his. I confronted him, of course, and he said that it's just some random girl that wanted to take a picture next to his car. He kept on denying that he knew her, so I just dropped the subject, but I remembered what her name was. We'll name her Karen. A few days passed and it was all good, but one day he accidentally fell asleep with his phone facing up. It was around 4 o'clock in the morning and his phone rang a few times. And guess who was calling? It was Karen. So when I seen that Karen was calling, I immediately woke him up. He still denied that he knew Karen, even though I brought up the whole situation about her posing next to his car. And since he denied it, I told him, let me see your phone. And of course, he said no. We were arguing at each other and yelling at each other at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he kicked me out of the house. I showed up at my mom's house unexpectedly at 4 o'clock in the morning. She knew that something was up. The next day came and I wanted answers. He didn't tell me what was going on between them or who she even was. So do you want to know what I did? I went to the source. Yes, I did. I messaged Karen who she was and why she was calling my boyfriend at 4 o'clock in the morning. She messaged me back after a few hours. She called me a liar. She said that was her boyfriend.